So I'm a couple weeks behind on watching Vaati's Armored Core 6 extended look video, but it is what it is. Go away, fly. And I've been very busy, and I've been very tired, and so I'm getting to it now, so... Sorry. Sorry it took me so long. I've been so busy. I've been so busy. So let's check it out. I love all of his content. It's all good.
As you watch this brand new footage of Armored Core 6, I'm curious, what do you see? Armored Core or Souls?
Yo! I love it.
Truth is, there's a bit of both here, honestly.
Oh.
I recognize the three-dimensional combat of Armored Core. I've seen its familiar mission structure, its atmosphere, and the unrivaled customization potential that the mecha genre lays claim to. But finally, no one can deny that there is a lot of Souls influence in this. This hard lock-on is not traditional Armored Core. The pacing and the telegraphed attacks would not look out of place in a Souls game.
Yeah,
Even the stagger system is basically Sekiro's.
So I've actually never played an Armored Core game before. So this will be my first. I'm very excited, and I love mechs, you know. I remember loving like Gundam Seed and stuff like that. I also really loved oh God, I'm so tired. What was it called? Evangelion? Yeah. I love mech stuff. I am so excited to finally actually play probably my first ever proper mech game. So the fact that it's like a Souls mech game makes me 10 times more excited because I loved Dark Souls 3 and I loved Elden Ring, so I'm really excited to see how this one goes.
Now, there's a lot I could say right now, but I'm honestly really tired of this whole debate, and I'd prefer to move on because there is now so much more to talk about instead. So, Bandai Namco has given me about 4 minutes of gameplay to share here today, but I've actually seen a lot more than this. Press were actually able to see a live demo of basically this entire mission.
Bragging.
And you know the best part of that live demo? It's that, unlike in this gameplay, the HUD, the heads-up display, was completely enabled.
Oh.
I paid a lot of attention to that, and while I don't have any footage of it, this is roughly what it looks like.
Okay.
Feel free to pause here, but I will break down this HUD more in depth later in the video so that you can understand it all. Now, I don't know why they haven't just shown it. I think it's actually the most genius part about the game that I saw, and I can't wait to explain why. But right now, though, I guess I should just showcase the gameplay that I have been given.
Oh man, and this is just gameplay. This is sick.
In this mission, it's our goal to infiltrate this huge facility. It's occupied by dosers, who are addicts, basically. They're people that have been using that substance that's called coral as a drug. But the facility is also occupied by a group of arms dealers who have this RAD logo, and it's their machines that repel your intrusion.
Pretty rad.
Well. In the showcase, From Software emphasized the multiple paths that you can take within the mission. You can sort of see those upper and lower paths here off to the left, and they lead to a bridge in the distance, but this player's build, at least, has very efficient flight capabilities, so they use that to take a more direct approach.
That's so cool.
So
I love
obviously, vertical and horizontal flight is a big thing in this game. The energy consumption during vertical flight in particular reminded me a lot of the early generations of Armored Core. So you can fly upwards, but it's probably near impossible to achieve sustained vertical flight, which I think is a good thing, as it stops you from flying over what is clearly more level design than Armored Core has traditionally had, which is amazing. One thing that does seem different though is it seems like you're way more energy efficient while flying and gliding horizontally in this game, which is something that seems to be partly enabled by the assault boost, which is
Okay.
basically a dodge boost that can be held for more distance and a continued overboost, so to speak. Let me just pause here for a second. Did you hear that little beep?
Yeah.
So we're now in range of those enemies down there, and if you could see the HUD, then you would know that our lock-on has just automatically jumped onto the closest one.
Oh, okay.
Our missiles are now primed, and we're now in what I'm calling a soft lock-on state. In this state, we still have really free, unrestrained, unguided movement of our mech, and it seems the lock-on can be freely moved between enemies. This should be more familiar to Armored Core fans because it's closer to the way that lock-on has traditionally worked in Armored Core, where you're responsible for keeping enemies within your sights in order to shoot at them, and the lock-on kind of does its own thing. So if we fire our missiles now, which they do, you can see one missile fly off to each nearby enemy, stunning them and giving us an opening to dash in and take them out one by one instead. Except at some point, the player locked on manually, and now we've transitioned into what I'm going to call a hard locked on state.
Oh, that looks fun.
Now that the enemies are dead,
Nice.
hard lock finally falls off, but wait, there's more enemies up top, so the player goes up and commits to more hard locked combat against them.
Oh,
and
man.
again, in this hard locked
This build
state,
seems fun.
we see a lock that entirely dictates the direction
Kind of reminds
you're
me
facing.
a little bit of
And
Doom.
that is not how lock-on has traditionally worked in Armored Core.
Like, not to say this is like a Doom-like or whatever, but I kind of hope that I can play kind of like the Doom Eternal style where I'm moving real quick and just constantly fucking firing at people. I think that would be an awful lot of fun. And yeah, I can't wait to see what it's like to like work on my mech, up if we can upgrade stuff, change out stuff. I'm probably going to try and go for a hyper mobile, maybe not necessarily a glass cannon, but probably kind of close to a glass cannon type build. I really love when the main way that I don't die is by dodging. But I might also try like a tanky build. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
In fact, the absence of hard lock-on is, I think, actually a big part of what contributed to Armored Core's traditional identity. So instead, you'll recognize this lock-on state from Souls. But before all the Armored Core fans get upset by this, perhaps rightfully so, remember the genius kind of is that the soft lock-on state, the traditional lock-on state, still seems to exist.
Yeah.
And I think playing with that lock-on state will be viable, and it will give you benefits, although you're probably missing out by not hard locking on sometimes and allowing the player and their camera to be very bound to a single enemy and have your movement strafe around them perfectly instead.
It's very satisfying
What's
gameplay
more,
when you can do that.
in this hard lock-on state, notice how all 4 missiles go to their single target here instead, as opposed to in the soft lock-on state where those missiles were spread evenly around the area to each enemy.
Yeah, that's sick.
That enables some really cool strategy, I think.
I like that.
And speaking of strategy, this player's combat strategy seems to be to use their machine gun to stagger these smaller enemies. Enemy stagger bars are seen here, and they build up visually just like they do in Sekiro, and you can see the moment that stagger kicks in here. In this staggered state, they've said that enemies take a ton more damage, and that makes it the perfect time to hit them with all your burst damage, which this player does with their barrage of 4 missiles. Or another thing you can do while the enemy is staggered is this.
Oh, I like that.
You can yeet enemies so far with this kick attack. Though, I feel like this enemy only flew so far because it was already staggered, though. In any other situation, the kick attack probably just builds up their stagger meter instead. Next clip. The gate was a major waypoint in the showcase, and it seemed to function a lot like a fog gate would in Souls, except when I watched, the player actually took about 10 seconds to hack open this gate.
Oh, okay.
They were vulnerable the entire time they were doing that, and they even got ambushed during that process, so it's a cool way to sort of stop you from progressing too far. In Souls, you can just like run past everything, so it's kind of good that they stop you doing that here. But here they enter a tight corridor, and these in Armored Core traditionally force you to fight quite differently than you would have out in the open.
True, eh?
Often in past Armored Core games, your missiles would become useless inside, especially if they're the type that fire upwards or outwards, and your long-range weaponry might not be as good either. So that's why it's a good idea to have
Energy
some
blade.
close-range parts to help you out in tight spaces.
You always gotta carry a knife
Shields
on you.
now, or maybe melee blades as well.
Hell yeah. Oh, I
Speaking
like
of
this
shields,
guy's build.
They've actually added something that I've always wanted them to add in Souls, and that's a timed block system. So what we know from interviews is that shields now have this brief moment when you deploy them where their defense is way stronger. It happens here. See that pulse when they pull it out? That should be a moment of optimal block, and that's obviously an incentive to perfectly time your blocks against strong attacks, rather than just keeping your shield active all the time. Next, melee weapons. You can clearly do multiple strikes with a lot of these,
parrying.
and having these preset animations makes me think that the blades might be exclusive to the left side, like they are in many previous Armored Core games, rather than being able to dual wield them, although I could definitely be wrong on that. Next we see the scan function for the first time. Enemies are revealed and can be locked onto through walls. I love this. Being able to peek ahead and think about your strategy is so much better than always being forced to figure things out on the fly. It enables planning based on your build, followed by execution of that plan with your reflexes and your coordination, and that is peak Armored Core to me. Speaking of customization though, next let's talk about build assembly in the garage, which is another huge design pillar of Armored Core. So here we thankfully get an overview of all of the part categories in Armored Core 6. Here are your 4 weapon slots, your 4 frame slots, and then your booster, your FCS lock-on part, your generator, and an expansion slot. This is fewer categories than most Armored Core fans will be used to. Inside parts, hanger weapons, radiators, those are all missing here. That said, the parts that we do see previewed here do have some great depth to them, so I think that might make up for having fewer categories. For example, your generator, which governs your energy, now has cooling built into it, rather than radiators being a separate part.
That's
and then certain weapons, like this laser dagger, can perform a charge attack if held, which is a depth to the gameplay. We also see certain ranged weapons that have this charging property as well.
I wonder if the individual parts are going to have individual upgrades as well. I feel like that's something that they will have. So perhaps instead of having a whole separate section for those upgrades, they'll have each of the parts have different things you can upgrade. Who knows though? But either way, this game looks so fun. This game looks sick. I can't wait. Oh my gosh.
And then there's missiles, which have unique attack characteristics, as they always have, but their descriptions here are more detailed than ever. Some are capable of multi-lock, which is when missiles fire at multiple targets, which I showed off earlier. Some missiles are better for AoE, creating a damage area. Some are better for staggering enemies, like these, which contribute greatly to build-up of ACS strain. And some missiles will just be great for taking out airborne enemies, like these, which are deliberately slowed down. Missiles hound targets during lengthy airborne time, enabling heavy pressure tactics. All these build considerations are such a fun, amazing part of Armored Core that I can't wait for people to discover. And if you're a new player, I think a lot of the time you will be able to get by simply reading these written descriptions, but the real endgame in Armored Core is learning to understand the complex stats and specs of each part seen down here. Though, if you think these stats are overwhelming, I've got news for you. So this is probably the simplified version. It reminds me a lot of Armored Core 4, where you were shown the most important stats on parts, but then you could toggle the display to reveal this. Yeah,
Okay.
so stats can get pretty intense, and while having a simplified view and glanceable icons is obviously the more modern approach, I really hope that they don't shy away from these overwhelming stat screens, because
Yeah,
they are
that'd be
such
so
a
fun.
hallmark of the series. In the showcase, the player actually accessed this garage mid-mission
I like those legs,
after
they're
being
cool.
destroyed by this quad-legged enemy. Their mid-range biped build was having a lot of trouble dealing any kind of damage to this enemy at range, so they wanted to change their build to an agile, close-range one instead. And they did it all manually, and it took less than a minute, and it was so convenient. Instead of having to do the entire mission again, they simply died, they loaded up the garage from the menu, they tweaked their build, and then they returned to the checkpoint that they had unlocked in their mission. And they were back.
I don't know how
with
I
a
feel
different
about
build
that.
completely. But as to the fight itself,
I don't know.
there's actually so much to break down in this fight, but the main thing I really want to talk about happens here, where they finally stagger the enemy. Whereas in Sekiro, this would enable an execution on stagger, in Armored Core 6, it's up to you to fully deliver that execution. The enemy is now taking extra damage, so if you have burst attacks, now's the time. What's more, it seems you can prolong this staggered state with certain attacks, keeping them stun-locked with the right combo, potentially, which might give a really high skill ceiling to this whole process.
I feel like there should be a commitment to at least the level. Like, yeah, maybe between levels or something. Like, say you complete your mission, you go back, then you can change it up. I don't really like the idea of being able to change your build halfway through a mission. Yeah, like maybe be able to leave the level, go to the garage, and then restart it. I don't know. I'm not as into that. I would probably just play that. I mean, honestly, I'm probably gonna use that function from time to time because it's in the game. Why not? Whatever. But I feel like it would be a little bit more impactful to have to, like, even to require like resources to be able to change out builds or whatever. But I don't know. I've also never played an Armored Core game before, so we'll see. Either way, it looks like a stupid fun game. Claymore strength build or whatever your equivalent. Yeah, I feel you there.
Alright, tourist. That's enough.
If you listen carefully here, you can hear a narrator say, "Alright, tourist, that's enough." That's because the enemy leader of this facility has been shit-talking you this entire time. The dialogue that I heard was witty and well-delivered, and that is a very welcome change from past Armored Core games. There was also some banter between this narrator and your own female operator, who is there to support you through your missions and warn you about what's ahead.
Okay, cool.
And a main boss is ahead. But before this, in the demo, the player actually called a resupply drone, replenishing their health, their repair kits, and their ammo, and then it was time to fight this thing. A boss
That
that
thing is so
has
cool.
its own health and stagger meter that appears at the top of the screen. Its attacks are extremely well animated and telegraphed, and
Reminds me of Nier
it has a ton
Automata.
of area denial and AoE, and it's just so well animated, and it looks like such a great fight. It also
Does.
has 2 lock-on points, a weak spot at the front, and a shoot at the top, which I guess flying builds might be able to take more advantage of. I wonder how a slow tank build would deal with something like this, though. It seems like it would be hard to get distance and dodge with a tank, hey? Anyway, as promised, let me recreate the heads-up display in more detail, starting with the most important things. First up is your AP, your
Okay.
armor points, or your health, basically, which was displayed numerically and with a slider around here. When the player took damage, this number and the slider would obviously deplete, and the screen would
Yeah.
also distort a little bit, especially at the edges, which you can kind of see here. Then there was the energy gauge seen
Alright.
around here. This was depleted by things like flight, quick boosting, and I think melee as well.
Cool.
Of course, in Armored Core, how big this bar is determined by the capacity of your generator part, and how fast it depletes and recovers is determined by the energy output of that generator and the cumulative energy drain of all of your parts. Of course, the efficiency of your boosters will probably also play a part.
Okay.
Above it was a stagger bar. It was empty by default, but would fill up with orange from the center, just like this, whenever you took damage, and then it would deplete if you didn't take damage for a few seconds. The same goes for enemies. If you get staggered though, I think you just sort of pause for a couple of seconds, and previous interviews seem to suggest that you'll start falling if you're in the air as well.
Oh, that
Next,
sucks.
there was like a box here for the expansion slot. So extensions are a category of parts that have traditionally allowed you to do unique things like jam enemy radar or shoot down enemy missiles automatically. Sometimes these extensions were activated manually, sometimes they're passive, and they're like my favorite part category in Armored Core because they give a ton of character to your build.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure the demo had no expansion part equipped, so this box
Gotta
was
explore
empty.
that for yourself.
Next to it were 2 bars. One was a visual indicator for your repair kits, of which the player had 3. Armored Core has never had an Estus flask equivalent before, but it does now. These can be activated instantly to heal the player, and it seems they can be replenished at supply stations,
Okay.
which can be called in certain missions, apparently. Underneath repair was a bar that said scan. When activated to scan surroundings for enemies, this bar would take a little while to regenerate and then it could just be used again. It wasn't long though, like 10 seconds between each scan maybe.
Yeah, that's not
On
long
the bottom
at all.
right were 4 familiar weapon slots. They showed your total ammo and your remaining magazine ammo for your left arm, left back, and right back weapons, respectively. This character has missiles on their right back, a machine gun on their right arm, a shield on its left back, and a blade on its left arm. Now, a recent interview stated that all 4 weapons are bound by default to all 4 controller triggers, and that all of your weapons can be fired at once, which is not how it's worked in any previous game. That sounds kind of insane, honestly, and pretend you're holding a controller. I cannot fathom, for the life of me, how you're supposed to fire all 4 weapons with your pointer and middle finger, and then doesn't that just leave your thumbs free for assault boosting and moving and interacting and changing
fun.
weapons? Just your thumbs for all those actions seems very difficult.
Nah.
So I'm extremely keen to get a hold of a demo and see.
It's
what the
always
deal
just
is
been my
here.
thumbs doing
There
all
was
that
a
other stuff on the
vertical
controller.
speed gauge on the left. There was what looked like an altitude gauge on the right. There was even a compass at the bottom. That was actually pretty cool because it had red dots for all of the enemies around you, which I assume would actually be pretty useful when helping to locate the enemies that are just outside your field of view.
Oh, that's
Then
so cool.
the mission objective was written top left, a
Defeat
waypoint
Big
marker was
Robot,
on
yeah.
screen for that objective, and killed enemy credit rewards would pop up on the bottom right.
That's so cool.
Of course, as mentioned earlier, the center
Oh,
of the screen
nice.
features your fire control system, your lock-on,
Yeah.
essentially. It's circular like it was in Armored Core 5, and while you're out of combat even, it stays in the center of your screen, and it has these sliders that help you keep track of your remaining magazine capacity as you fire your left and right arm and back weapons, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah.
So the UI is nice, it's super clean, and it displays a ton of information, but it's this lock-on behavior that I think is the most fascinating thing about Armored Core 6 so far, and this is the part of the UI that I kind of love the most. So again, when you get in range of an enemy, this lock-on element jumps over to them, while the lock-on display itself starts to display that enemy's health and stagger meter at the top, in addition to your ammo in the bottom left and right. Inside the lock-on though, there's this little number which dictates how many of your missiles will go to this enemy should you fire them.
Oh, that's so
Again, if you're
cool.
soft
I like
locked
that.
on, that number will be split between nearby enemies, and if you're hard locked on, all of your missiles will go towards them. Additionally, the lock-on actually updates with an enemy's distance from you, which is extremely important information because staying at optimal weapon range is a really big thing in Armored Core. And it also shows little damage numbers, which pop up as you pop off, and that's really important to give you visual feedback on the effectiveness of your range or the effectiveness of your weapon type. You want to know if you're dealing damage, and I always loved this feature when it was added in Armored Core 4, so I'm very glad to see that return. I even noticed some little enemy status words pop up around the lockbox, like unaware would pop up if the enemy didn't know you were stealthed, and ACS load limit, I think, popped up if you staggered them. So this lock-on is doing a lot of heavy lifting in Armored Core 6, and I love it. I'm glad they've baked so much information into this UI, because that is such a huge part of what Armored Core is all about, and
nice.
What their design team deserves props for is the fact that they've baked all this information in while keeping everything looking sleek and unobtrusive. It's very clever design, and I hope they show off the HUD soon, because I'm probably just butchering it in Photoshop now. I have so much more to say about this demo, but it should probably wait for when we get new footage, or for if I get my hands on it, if I'm lucky. In the meantime, if you're curious about Armored Core, then please check out my recent video where I show off every single old Armored Core game.
Whoa,
And
that
I think
that
that video
looks
will
sick.
just always stand as a way for you guys to learn a ton about the series if you don't have the time to play for yourself.
Whoa, that's a lot of freaking games. I had no idea this was such a big thing. Got PlayStation 2 was one of the best systems ever. My PS2 got so much freaking playtime. I wish I had Armored Core. Oh my gosh. If I could go back in time. I do absolutely not have a PlayStation 2 emulator on my desktop where I can put PS2 games into my computer and play PlayStation 2 games on my computer. I absolutely do not have that. Oh man. That's sick. That's cool. I mean, I'll probably just play Armored Core 6, but if I ever feel like going back and playing a PS2 Armored Core, I can. That's cool as hell.
And I had an amazing time playing all of the old games. But until next time, thank you for watching. I also want to say special thanks to Con from Bandai, Australia, for getting up at midnight to pass me this footage. That was so appreciated, and it's honestly half the reason I had enough time to edit all of this for you guys. So
That's
thank
so
you,
cool.
Con. And the same
Good job,
goes for
Vaati.
Steven
Good
at
job.
Bandai and countless others who just enable these kind
also
of
Con.
demos and previews behind the scenes. Thank you. And
Thank
if you're a
you to
content
everyone
creator
involved.
who couldn't get access, then you're more than welcome to react to this video and to
Oh.
this footage. I hope that helps somewhat.
Oh,
Thank you again for watching.
thanks for
I'll see you
approving
next
it.
time.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. I love that. Oh, and then it's just the raw. Okay, let's hold on. Let's just watch. All right, it sounds a little hollowed out, so the audio is probably a lot cleaner in the final version. Yeah, that's definitely, like, that better not be the gameplay audio. It's definitely hollowed out. But the game looks freaking awesome. Oh, yeah, Vaati always puts out awesome stuff. I'm good. Just tired, but still good. I'm so stoked for this game. Oh my gosh. Yo. There we go. This audio is a lot cleaner. Oh, this game looks so fun. Yeah, I hope that there will be a huge range of parts to choose from. But I guess we'll see. That looks nice. That looks really nice. Woo! Nice.
Alright, sir. That's enough.
Alright. Teasing us there. Yo. That is so sick. Oh my gosh. Oh man, dudes, this looks so cool. I cannot wait to play this. What the heck? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I imagine so, especially on enemies like this guy. I imagine it's going to be very important to hit the right spot. That is so friggin' cool. What the heck? I'm so excited. And so that's coming out next month. Next month is August, guys. It's July. We're already into July. That's so insane. Oh my gosh. This looks so good. Yeah, so we've got like a month and a half until it comes out, which is good cuz you know, I still have to beat Tears of the Kingdom. We've done the water temple, we've done the fire temple. We'll try and get through some stuff. Yeah, and this is all just gameplay, Frank. So that's what's friggin' awesome about this. Like, this gameplay looks so much fun. I love it. This looks like so much fun. Oh my goodness. This looks like my style game for friggin' sure. This build also kind of does give me some Doom vibes. It's just that, like, Doom has about 50 million more enemies. Hey, Void. Oh, this is Armored Core 6. You're not allowed to talk about August being next until at least the 10th. It's alright, Vidip. It's okay. It's alright. Yeah, our Armored Core 6. So this game comes out next month. Vidip. I'm so ready for it. This is so exciting. Oh my gosh. September 6th. Wait. What comes out September 6th? Starfield comes out later in September, right? Or is that Starfield? So Starfield is September 6th. Okay, I'm gonna wait a little bit after Starfield comes out, see what people say about like all the glitches and stuff, if there are any. Plus, I'm gonna want to play more Armored Core, so we'll see how that goes. I'm not gonna play Starfield as soon as it comes out, most likely. We'll see. We'll see what's going on. We'll also see if I'll even be able to stream. Oh god, I want to play it so freaking bad, though. Hey, there you go. I mean, if it's free for you, technically, then there you go. And yes, VidUp. Oh my god, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm gonna try and go for a Doom build. That's what I want. I have to replay Doom Eternal. Oh gosh. There's so many games. I don't have time for all these games. I gotta make time, I guess, somehow, kind of. Alright. I'm so hyped. I was really, really, really tired, and now I'm still tired, but I'm really hyped. Here we go. Yeah, this is gonna set the stage for the rest of the night.